When I first brought Blue the dog home, my focus was all about feeding her, toilet training and dealing with a puppy with more energy than a winter storm. It was only when I started taking her to puppy club and talking to other dog owners that I discovered that many of the things I'd believed to be optional were in fact legal obligations when it came to owning a dog. So here's a walk through the laws, rules and guidance that apply to dog owners in Scotland that I've discovered so far. First off, let's start with the Control of Dogs Scotland Act of 2010, which describes and defines how a dog control notice will be served on the owner of a dog deemed to be out of control. In the introduction to the guidance to the Act is a clear statement that the focus is on the deed and not the breed, which places total responsibility on the owner and not on the dog, which may seem obvious, but in the 4 months of walking Blue, I've heard dog owners explaining to me why their dog's behaviour is due to their breed and rarely due to their incapacity to be in control of their dog. This has normally been accompanied by them saying he or she normally wouldn't hurt a fly, as their free-roaming dogs have attacked or aggressed Blue while she's been on a lead. It's interesting that a dog control notice will typically be served on the owner of the dog when the dog is deemed to be out of control by a local authority authorised officer, even if they were not present when the law was broken. This 2010 Act amends the 1991 Dangerous Dogs Act so that it is now a criminal offence to allow any dog to be dangerously out of control. If found guilty, the offending owner can face up to 2 years in prison, an unlimited fine and a ban from owning a dog. The 2010 Control of Dogs Scotland Act is linked to other legislation as follows. The Dogs Act of 1906 and the Environmental Protection Act of 1990 mean that any dog unaccompanied in a public place will be treated as a stray dog, so probably not a good idea to let your dog wander out of your line of sight. If a dog causes injury or danger to any person in a public place or gives a person cause for alarm or annoyance, then the Civic Government Scotland Act of 1982 allows for a fine of up to £500. The same Act also has a provision to apply a court order if a dog causes annoyance in the vicinity of where a person resides, e.g. excessive barking, which means if there is a breach of the order, then a fine of up to £1,000 can be applied. Add to this the Antisocial Behaviour etc. Scotland Act of 2004, which has a provision of a fixed penalty notice if dogs are responsible for a noise nuisance. The Control of Dogs Order 1992/901 makes it an offence if your dog is not wearing a collar in a public place, which provides details of the owner. I found that most good quality dog collars and harnesses have a label to write details on, but a dog tag is a sure way of satisfying the Control of Dogs order. The Animal Health and Welfare Scotland Act of 2006 allows a court to take possession of any animals to protect them from suffering, using the oddly named disposal order to sell or rehouse the animal. The Microchipping of Dogs Scotland Regulations of 2016 does what it says on the tin. It is compulsory in Scotland to microchip all dogs over 8 weeks old and have their details registered with a compliant database. And now for the expensive one, the Dogs Protection of Livestock Amendment Act, which was originally drafted to mean that any owner whose dog is found worrying or killing livestock risks a fine of up to £5,000 or 6 months in prison. However, when the Act came into law in 2021, the maximum penalty was increased to £40,000 and allows the court to ban anyone convicted from owning a dog. There are also recent laws which address dog breeders and professional dog walking companies, as well as dog abduction and dog fighting, but I won't cover them here. It is now against the law in Scotland to chase and kill a wild mammal using a dog, and the 2023 Hunting with Dogs Scotland Act also bans trail hunting except in limited circumstances. In addition to all of the above, you need to be aware of all local authority bylaws, which often include limiting where dogs may be exercised and excludes them from children's play parks and recreational areas. It seems that most local authorities accept that if a dog responds to an owner's commands to remain close at heel and immediately returns to the owner, sits or lies down, is under control and does not necessarily need to be on a lead. It's also worth taking a look at the Scottish Outdoor Access Code, which adds that dogs should not be allowed to enter fields with lambs, calves or other young farm animals, even on a lead, and that if walking through fields with adult farm animals, then the dog must be on a short lead or kept at close heel. The code does, however, say that if cattle react aggressively, then the owner can release the dog and run for the nearest exit. Dogs are also not allowed off the path in fields of vegetables or fruit and should not be allowed to roam during the ground nesting bird breeding season, which is typically April to July, and that all dog poo should be bagged and taken home for disposal. It's an offence under the Dog Fouling Scotland Act of 2003 for anyone in charge of a dog not to immediately clean up after the animal if it fouls in any public place or on private land without the owner's consent. Owners who don't pick up their dog's mess and dispose of it properly will face a fine of £80. There are ongoing debates about whether stick and flick is acceptable instead of bagging dog poo, particularly in woodlands or areas with no livestock. However, the safest default has to be to bag and bin. It's interesting that the code also provides advice to croft and farm owners about signage and the control of guard and working dogs where paths cross their land. It's also worth mentioning that Rule 57 of the Highway Code states that when in a vehicle, make sure dogs or other animals are suitably restrained so they cannot distract you while you are driving or injure you or themselves if you stop quickly. A seatbelt harness, pet carrier, dog cage or dog guard are ways of safely restraining animals in cars. I'm sure that there are other rules and regulations that I'll discover with the goodness of time, but I reckon that just about covers the most relevant rules and regulations for dog owners in Scotland. It's all good.